Welcome to our class on Chassidus. We're going to be learning a beautiful Chassidic discourse from the Rebbe. The name of the Chassidic discourse is called Ki Bayom Hazeh. The Rebbe said this Chassidic discourse in Shabbos Parshas Achrei Kadoshin, that year the two Torah portions were read together. It was also Yud Gimel Eir, the 13th day of the month of Eir, in the year Tafshin Mem Ches, 36 years ago. So again, the Chassidic discourse is based on the verse in this week's Torah portion where it says, Ki Bayom Hazeh, because on this day, יכפר עליכם, Hashem is going to atone, לטהר אתכם, to purify you, and then it says, לפני Hashem, in front of Hashem, תטהרו, you're going to be purified. So he brings in Likutei Torah, which is from the Alter Rebbe, the Chassidic teachings on the Parsha, which is called the Chassidic Torah portion of the week, and he says, this is the verse says, לפני Hashem, in front of Hashem. What does it mean in front of Hashem? He actually means He's going to purify you to the level of Lamaila, higher than the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei. And he brings over there that what is the whole idea of tshuva, returning, when a person returns to Hashem, the idea of tshuva is returning your godly soul to its source. The way it was before it came down, all the different levels to come down into the physical body. And over there, before it came down, it was part and it was connected in its source of the infinite light of Hashem. So tshuva is returning the godly soul to its original source. But what happens is, after it came down to this world, and many levels down here, and it changed from one level to the next, and it came to a physical body, into this physical world. So the soul has to go back to its source, and it has to go lifnei Hashem. It means it has to go back to the point where it's cleaving with the living God. That means it has to become one with I'll say it in Hebrew, and I'll translate the Oirein Seif Baruch Hu, the infinite part of Hashem, just like before. So that's what the Alter Rebbe explains in Likutei Torah, why it says Lifnei Hashem, because it has to go back when it does tshuva to the place where it came originally from. Rabbi said you can say that this that he explains in the Chassidic discourse, that what does tshuva mean? What does returning mean? To return the soul to its source is also to explain why it says it over here in reference to tshuva, Lifnei Hashem, titahru, that in front of Hashem it has to be purified, and like the Alter Rebbe explained, it has to be higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei. Why is that? Because this that he explains in the Chassidic discourse, that the source of the soul is an Oirein Seif Baruch Hu, in the infinite light of Hashem. What does he mean? The Rabbi explains that he's referring to which part of Oirein Seif, which part of the infinite part of Hashem, the part which is higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei. Why? Because what's the whole idea of tshuva, returning? You have to return the soul to its source. So when you're doing tshuva, is you're returning the soul to Oirein Seif, which is higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei, and that's why it says Lifnei Hashem. And that's why in reference to tshuva it says Lifnei Hashem. Because what is the whole idea of tshuva? To return the soul to the level of the Lifnei Hashem, higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei. So that's what the Alter Rebbe explains. So the Rebbe says to understand this, he's going to explain it as follows. In other words, that the source of the soul is higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei. Because we know that we say in the prayers, it says as follows: Neshama, the soul that we're talking about, Shenasatavi, that you gave me, Tahiri, it's pure. Atabarasa, you created. In other words, that the soul on its own is in the level of Tahira, pure, and it's even higher than you created it. So in other words, there's two levels. There's pure, and then there's the part of Hashem that created. The soul comes from where? From the level of purity. In other words, this level of purity is referring to the godliness which is higher than anything of creation, anything that's related to Barasa. Not only that, it's even higher than the part of God which creates the world. And that itself, it's even higher than the highest level of godliness which is connected to creating the world. It means Tahira is higher than any part of God which has to do with Barasa, creating the world. Why is that? Because when it comes to the part of God which is used to create the world, there's different levels. In other words, there's a part of God that's connected to the world. Like we know, there's the Shem Elokim of God. And like it says when Hashem created the world, what does it say in the beginning of Genesis? Bereshis bara Elokim. Which name of God did God use to create the world? The Shem Elokim. there's also a part of God which is much higher and really has no connect with the materialistic world. What name of God is that? That's the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei, Shem Havaya. But nevertheless, so Shem Elokim, Hashem used to create the world. Yud Kei Vav Kei is higher, but it has some kind of relation with the world. Why? Because why is it called Yud Kei Vav Kei? Because from there there's the energy to create the world. And like it says clearly in the Torah, Hashem Elokim eretz hashamayim, that even though Elokim is Bereshis bara, but Hashem Elokim is partners in creating the world. In other words, Hashem created the earth and the heaven. It's not only limited to Hashem Elokim, it's also connected to Hashem Havaya. So therefore, when we say neshama is tahirihi, it's even higher than that creation. It means it's higher than anything in the world. It means it's higher not only from the name of Elokim, but it's even higher from the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei, because Yud Kei Vav Kei has also some kind of relationship with the world. So what the Rebbe is explaining is as follows: the Alter Rebbe taught us that the neshama goes back to its source, which is higher than Yud Kei Vav Kei. And why is that? So he explains, because since it says in a neshama shall be tahiri at the barasa, it means Elokim is connected to the world. Yud Kei Vav Kei is higher, but it's also somewhat connected to the world. Tahiri is even higher, and the soul goes back to that higher level. And the Rebbe says we're going to explain it even deeper. Like we know that the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is called Shem HaEtzem. It's the essence part of the name that describes the essence of Hashem, or the Shem HaMafoirish. It's the name that literally spells out the connection to the deepest part of Hashem, or Shem HaMyuchad. It's the name that's connected in the oneness with Hashem. But Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei is a very, very powerful name of Hashem. In other words, it's the highest name of Hashem. The highest name is Yud Kei Vav Kei. So therefore, so the fact that Yud Kei Vav Kei, as high as it is, has a connection with the creation of the world. Why is that? Because it's a name, and it's not the essence. It's a description. It's a name. And yes, even though it's the Shem HaMafoirish and Shem HaMyuchad and Shem HaEtzem, but it's still a name. So based on this, we'll understand why the source of the soul is in the level of Torah, which is even higher than the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei, which has a connection to the world, because the source of the soul is I'll say in Hebrew the term, in Atzmos, the essence of Hashem himself, which is higher than any name or any type of revelation. So what the Rebbe explains is, again, that when you're dealing with a name, as high as it is, it's still a name. Versus the soul is sourced into the essence of Hashem. Now, this that the soul returns back to its source, that actually elevates the soul. What does that mean? It explains like this: because the fact is, before the soul came down into this world, where was it? It was connected to the essence of Hashem. But the way it was connected, that was before it came down, was pure. It was connected to the essence of Hashem. But what happens is, after the soul comes down to this world, and you bring the soul back, even let's say to the same space, the essence of Hashem, what is the intent? The intent is that the soul, the way it's down here, connected to a body, and there's a soul in the body. Even on this level, the goal is v'haruach tashuv elokim. The spirit goes back to Hashem, Asher Sinana, that gave the soul. But what are we talking? Not just the soul, the pure soul, the soul that got connected to the body. What does that mean? This that the soul goes back to its source. It's in the world. How does it happen that it goes back to its source? It happens by the soul doing its work in this physical world. What is the work that it does in this world? It does the work of Dira Lo Yizbarach B'Taktainim. The soul is down here for what? To make a dwelling place for Hashem. Every time you learn, every time you pray, every time you do a mitzvah, you're making a dwelling place for Hashem. And what's the whole idea of making a dwelling place for Hashem down in this world? Is that God Himself should be revealed without any contractions or limitations. For example, just like when someone lives in their house, so who lives in the house? The external part of yourself, you live in the house. So the goal is that Hashem Himself should live in this world. So when the world becomes a dwelling place for Hashem, that means Hashem is here in a revealed state. That means literally, we call it tachtoinim, which means the lower world, which means God is concealed, that in the place where God is concealed, God Himself should be revealed without any type of contractions or limitations. And like it says clearly in the prophets, the goal is there's not going to be anything blocking. It's going to be totally revealed. And like the author explains in Tanya, and it's explained many places in mysticism, that we're not going to have to hide with any clothing or any concealment. Hashem is going to be totally revealed through the avodah, through the work of the soul in this world. Now, when the soul does this work, that means the soul brings down the essence of Hashem down into this materialistic world. So what happens then is the soul gets elevated. And then you bring the soul back to its source in the essence of Hashem. So what Rabbi is saying is like this. The soul initially was in the essence of Hashem. It came down to this world, and it does its work of making God revealed in this world. Then the soul, the way it got involved in the world, goes back to its source, and that's the elevation part of the soul. So from here we understand that this that the soul goes back to its source is referring to the way the soul got involved in the body. Because what does the soul do? He's bringing godliness down into the materialistic world, body, physicality, etc. So what is the reward that the soul receives for this type of work? Is v'haruach tashav, the spirit goes back. Even the way it's down in this world, the way the soul is in a body, the soul gets to go back to its source. And that's the elevation that takes place in the soul by coming down to the body. Even on this level, when it comes down to the world, into this world, it still has the power to go ahead and be v'haruach tashav, the soul will go back to its source. Now, in this elevation the soul has, there's two components. What are two components? Component number one is that even while the soul comes down into this world, it has the power to go back to its source. Like the verse says, "Ruach tashav Elokim go asher nasanana." So what does that represent? That represents the deep and the tremendous connection that the soul has with the essence of Hashem. It means even though it came down here, it's still connected and goes back to its source. Like the Alter writes powerfully in Tanya, he says that when a person unfortunately sins, even while a person is sinning and rebelling against Hashem, it's still connected. It's still faithful to Hashem. Well, how is it faithful if it's sinning? Because yes, it is sinning externally, but the connection is so strong that even while the person is sinning, it still feels and is still connected to Hashem. So therefore, when the soul comes down to this world, and in this world, even though it gets involved in the world, it still has the power to go back to its source, because that represents the tremendous strength of the connection that the soul has with God. That's point number one. If the soul, as much as it gets involved in the materialistic world, it always stays connected on high. And the second idea is that when the soul comes down into this world, it goes ahead and transforms the body. And it affects on the body, not where the body gets obliterated, but it works to the body. That the body stays the body. And the soul affects the body that the body should realize, yes, it's only a conduit, it's not the main thing, and the main thing is the soul. So the Rabbi is saying is that what happens is when the soul comes down to the body, there's two things. Number one is it still stays connected. And number two is when it gets involved in the body, it inspires the body should realize, yes, we're not looking to obliterate you, we're working to work with you, but remember the most important thing is God and godliness. So Rabbi says he liked to connect this, what's explained in the Torah, of the second Torah portion that year was Achri Kedoshim together. This year it's two separate Torah portions. But it says in the Torah in Parashat Kedoshim, which is again the Chassidic Torah portion of the second Torah portion that year, and this year will be next week, so to speak, based on the verse that says, when you come into the land and you plant, you're going to plant fruit-bearing trees. So this is Rabbi asks a simple question. We know that generally speaking, the way things operate is something which is called Melmata Lamaila. You start off on the step number one, you go to 2, 3, you move up the ladder in life. So what's the process when you plant a tree? So the first 3 years, we know you can't eat it. It's dedicated to Hashem. What does that spiritually mean? Don't eat it. Why can't I eat it? Because the spiritual service is surmei ra. We have to train ourselves, stay away from something, practice restraint. What happens in the fourth year? Wow. Now, the fourth year is dedicated to Hashem. It becomes Kodesh, it becomes holy. And what does that mean? You have to eat it in Jerusalem. Just like, for example, on the same spiritual level of like the eating on Shabbat and Yom Tov, which is all about positive actions. Okay, so that's so far going from the lower level to the higher level. It means the first 3 years you don't eat it, so Ra. The 4th year it's holy, you eat in Jerusalem, and it's Asay Toiv. 1 second, Rabbi asks. What happens in the 5th year? You're allowed to eat it everywhere. Even during the week, any way you want. And matter of fact, most days of the week is during the week. So yeah, you can eat some on Shabbos and Yom Tov, but most eating is during the week, the 6 days of the week. So normally you should be going it should be going, you're not eating it, then you're eating in the temple, and now you can do whatever you want with it. It should have been you're not eating, maybe you can do whatever you want, and then you bring it to the temple. You want to go up in life, not you went up and now you're going down. Rabbi explains as follows: you are going up. Why? Because in the first 3 years you didn't eat it. The 4th year it's holy, you only eat in Jerusalem. The 5th year is an upgrade. What is it? Well, how's it an upgrade? You can eat it anywhere and everywhere, because it's a higher level. Because the 5th year we have the power, yes, it is materialistic food, but we have the power, even during the week, to transform the physical world. Like it says, B'chol drachecha, in everything you do, da'eh, you have to know Hashem. Or even a step further, chol masa, even to simple action. Do it for the sake of Hashem. That means even in a simple action, and even though it's liking da'eh, you're not necessarily thinking about God, but you're doing it for Hashem. So the same thing also that that just like you climb the ladder, where literally materialistic world becomes a spiritual experience, the 5th year is a spiritual experience because you're elevating the physical world. The same thing also back to the point that the soul comes in the body and the soul inspires the body, that the body is not the main thing. The main thing is to elevate the world. The Rebbe says it should be the will of Hashem that by discussing these ideas, we should actually merit to come to fulfill the mitzvot, the commandments which are connected to the land of Israel in a little sense, and that's when Mashiach comes, and we should be done in a complete way. And at that time, when Mashiach comes, everyone's going to be in the land of Israel, not like the second temple. And you can even look into it whether in the first temple, if everyone was in Israel after the 10 tribes were exiled. However, when Mashiach comes, it's not even a question. Everyone's going to be there, and there's especially that we're talking about these ideas, and we're talking about the ideas the way that it's explained in the internal part of the Torah, in the Chassidic part of the Torah. And as we know, that's all about spreading the wellsprings of mysticism. And because the teaching was based on the teachings of the Alter Rebbe and Likutei Torah. And also there's an explanation from the Tzemach Tzedek. And the Rebbe says recently there was also printed a teaching from the Minkowicz Rebbe on this. And it's also connected to the 33rd day in the Omer, Lag BaOmer. And as we know, Lag BaOmer is all about sharing the teachings of the mysticism. And therefore the joy on that day is a revealed joy. And then that's the difference between the 7th day of Adar and Lag BaOmer, because the 7th day of Adar initially wasn't necessarily such a great thing, but afterwards it became a happy day. However, Lag BaOmer right away was a happy day. And not only that, but Lag BaOmer is on the Sfira, and the Sfira Omer is Hoid Shabahid, and it's also in the 5th week of Sfira Omer, and it's on the lowest level, but on the other hand, it connects to the highest level, and it connects to the ultimate, real joy without any limits. And by learning Chassidus, and like there was learning Chassidus and connecting Lag BaOmer and having the tremendous simcha, we will come to the true and complete redemption. And like Rabbi finishes off and says, a simchas oilam al roisham, we should have an everlasting, powerful simcha. So here's again another beautiful Chassidic discourse in the Parsha about the real power that we have to transform ourselves, to transform the world, and bring our soul back to its original place. The soul's always connected, and now we also have the opportunity to bring back the body as well. Have a great and blessed week. Thanks so much for joining our class on Chassidus.